name was one of the hardest things for me to say.
What's your name?
Bryan.
Where is the difficulty?
Not anymore as it used to be.
Okay.
My name is Bryan. I lived in Los Angeles, California. After taking the course, I understood everything. It makes sense. I'm applying it, it's working. And I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
So I've pretty much been stuttering since I was 5 years old. I usually try to avoid talking to people. Like, I try to answer it in a way that is the shortest. Like, if you ask me, so how was your day? I would say, good. That's all. This is the first. After Genesis, it goes, the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. No other national story holds such tremendous lessons. Let me explain what I just read.
Yes.
I don't know it.
Roman, Bryan.
Hello, Roman. Hello.
Bryan, do you see me?
Yes, I do.
Second, toggle full screen. Okay. So Bryan, we always begin the same way. What questions do you have for Roman?
Right now I can't think of any because I'm a little bit nervous. Yeah.
Okay, so Bryan, if you have any questions as we are talking, don't hesitate, raise your hand and ask a question. It's very important that you understand everything we say.
Okay, I will.
Хорошо, Брайан. Все, что связано с речью, это связано только с умом человека.
Everything that has any connection to speech is directly linked to the mind of a person. Mind.
Okay.
Все твои проблемы, они в уме.
All your problems are in your mind.
Okay.
So our goal today is to unblock your mind.
Okay. I understand. The book is called The Voice of Knowledge.
Who is the author?
Don Miguel Ruiz. A beautiful and ancient legend that almost everyone has heard before is the story of Adam and Eve. It is one of my favorite stories because it explains with symbolism what I will try to explain with words. The story of Adam and Eve is based on absolute truth, though I never understood it as a child. It is one of the greatest teachings ever. But I believe that most people misunderstand it. Now I will tell you this story from a different point of view, perhaps from the same point of view as the one who created it.
Okay, so tell me back what you remember.
A beautiful story, ancient story of Adam and Eve. He will explain in words while the story is in symbolism. It is based on absolute truth, though he never understood it as a child. It is one of his favorite stories, and a lot of people misunderstand it. He will try to explain the story in his own point of view, maybe as the one who created it. My reading was 100%. Telling back what I read was 80%.
80%? Did you make any mistakes?
I didn't say everything that I read.
I've asked you about the quality of your speech, of your words.
The quality was 100, of course.
Of course. You wouldn't say this 3 days ago, right?
Yeah, I would.
2 days ago.
I have been a stutterer for as long as I could remember. When I was 4 years old, or 5, I couldn't fully express myself.
You were born in California.
Yes, in Los Angeles.
But what language did people speak around you?
I mostly remember Spanish when I was younger.
So, in what language did you first experience difficulty expressing yourself?
I think it was actually English, because I remember it more in school.
How old were you when you went to school?
I was 4 years old.
You were exposed to English language first time.
Yes.
So you basically didn't know the language. Of course you couldn't express yourself.
Yes, this is true. I remember that I was very shy as a child, so it was hard for me to interact with the other children in my class. And I didn't practice my speech. No, I didn't hear myself speak.
Were there other children who spoke Spanish around you?
No, in this class it was mostly English. I stayed a shy, introverted kid for most of my early years in school. I think my parents noticed it first, and they told the school about it, so they could maybe sign me up for speech therapy. I did an assessment for speech. After the assessment, I think they did take me out of the class a few times to work on my speech. In 7th grade, I think my dad talked to the school, so they did assessment on my speech in 7th grade.
Again, another assessment?
Yes, another one.
Okay.
We didn't actually learn many techniques. They also did what they did to me in elementary, where they took me out of class. I didn't like that, because then when I went back to class, I would have to explain to people in my class that I left for a speech. And I do remember that in elementary and for some part of middle school, I didn't really stutter that much. I was just very shy.
Very shy means you didn't speak much.
Yes.
That's why you didn't stutter.
Yes. In my 7th grade speech program, we would just read things out loud, speak to the speech therapist. He would probably just teach me the breathing technique. That's the only one I could remember.
That's why you complained that you had the air trapped here and it was hurting your chest.
Yes.
Remember you complained?
Yes, I do. So we stopped the speech therapy after a few sessions in 7th grade because the speech therapist actually said, I don't have a speech problem. And it just so happened the few times that I had speech therapy with him, I wouldn't stutter at all. I started high school and it was a completely new environment. And I remember my speech was worse in high school than it was in middle school.
Okay, it was not just new environment, Bryan. It was a much higher demand for the level of your speech.
Yes.
You were expected to speak a lot, to do presentations and stuff, right?
Yes. When I started high school, we would have to introduce ourselves to the class. This was one of the hardest parts for me in school because my name was one of the hardest things for me to say.
What's your name?
Bryan.
Where is the difficulty?
Not anymore as it used to be.
Okay.
My grades in high school were not good because I would try to avoid almost everything that involved socializing. While some students at the end of class would go to the teacher to ask more questions about things they didn't understand, I would not do that at all for any of the classes. And I couldn't really focus in class because I would only think of if the teacher would want to ask me a question. So I couldn't focus on the subject in the class. After high school, I was very depressed. I only had two options, which was go to college or start working.
What did you do? What did you choose?
I avoided work as much as I could. And I went straight to college. But I flunked every class. Also, I ended a long-term relationship. And I became very depressed. I had absolutely no motivation to do anything in my life. I had no motivation to leave the house, to socialize with my family anymore. My first job was in my second year of college. And I didn't even apply for that job. My partner at the time, she applied for me. And I just happened to get that job. And I was able to go along with that job because I didn't have to socialize much. I worked in the warehouse of the department store. I was happy that I could avoid the customers, but I still had to socialize with the employees of the store. And I had a lot of issues with that part.
Oh.
Yeah. The second job was at a pizzeria. It is doing pretty much everything except talking to the customers. I would deliver the pizza to people's houses. Instead of saying the price, I would just show them the receipt, just to avoid any sort of conversation. I had too much work on me. I had so much anxiety. I started having a lot of health problems. So I quit the two jobs I had at the time, and I didn't have anything to do. I wasn't gonna go to school anymore. I wasn't working, and I had health problems. My brother helped me get a job, like an intern. I would have to interact in that place. I didn't really have the option to avoid interaction. And that was the first point in my life I got confronted with that. I was not successful at that job, so I quit that job. I pretty much gave up on everything. I wasn't going to school anymore. I wasn't going to try to work, even if the jobs were available for me. I would just spend time in my house playing video games.
Who paid for your lazy lifestyle?
My parents did that. And I would actually start using recreational drugs. Yes.
Like what kind of drugs?
Marijuana.
So you smoke pot?
Yes, that's what I did for about a year and a half. And I wouldn't do anything at all. I would just play video games. I would stay in my room most of the time. I would spend some time with my partner. But I can tell she was not fully in the relationship. So in 2016, I was starting to watch a lot of YouTube videos, and I saw one of your videos.
Oh.
Yes. And I got really motivated when I saw that in the first day of class, the student would stutter a lot, just like me. And then on the last day, they spoke like I do right now. I knew I needed the job first in order to get the money.
Yep.
So in that year, I actually did apply and I got hired for a job. But I spent only a few months in that job. I did not accumulate as much money as I needed.
The laziness took over.
Yes, the laziness took over again.
Okay.
And so it took me another year and a half probably to get another job. And that's the job I currently have right now, actually. So I kept watching more of your YouTube videos to motivate me to get out of my comfort zone and to get the job. I looked for the jobs that had no social interaction. So this job right now doesn't require me to socialize much. Although the managers have tried to put me in position to socialize more, they noticed that I was struggling. So they just put me on the jobs that have no socializing. To get enough funds, it took me half a year, 6 months, and I decided that the only thing I would use my money on was for this course. I didn't spend money on food much. I wouldn't go to the movies, go out to restaurants. I wouldn't do any of that. On the first day, I didn't know what to expect. I had seen the YouTube videos, but you don't see everything that happens in the YouTube videos. You just see how the stutterer stutter a lot, and then on the last day, you would hardly stutter or not stutter at all. So I was anxious, nervous, wasn't prepared. But first, we did another small evaluation. It was with you and Roman. Roman, actually. His name is Roman, right? He was observing me for about half an hour. He was talking to you about the things he observed about me. You were translating things that he was saying to me. I like that he speaks perfectly. I can feel confident that he knows what he's doing. When he explained things to me, it made perfect sense. I really do appreciate him, the things that he's explained to me, the reason for this course, because I know he's a large part of it. I want to thank him for all of this too. I did the proper adjustments. After that, I started seeing that speaking was not as hard as it used to be. On the second day, after our Skype meeting, I would have to make a few phone calls to speak to people in front of me. And that was a very hard thing for me to do at first, because I was not used to that type of interaction at all. But I noticed that as long as I prepared myself, it was not hard at all. On the third day, I had already understood everything I had to do. My overall impression is you cannot expect what the course is going to be about before you take it. So I suggest you save up money for the course and you take the course. Thank you very much.